It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today for the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm really grateful that you invited me and you set all this up. So this is awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah, my pleasure, man. So let's begin our journey with 5 years ago, this pandemic, which changed so much for all of us in so many ways. How
Okay,
did you survive the pandemic of 2020, and how did it radiate into your world in 2025 right now?
got it. So the pandemic, it's interesting you use the word survive. I wasn't really in a survive mode, if you will. At the time, I was working for Apple, and definitely a lot of changes and a lot of shift in terms of how Apple operated because at least the department that I was in is a really a person-to-person type culture. But given the situation, we were staying home, and also at the same token, my little one was born. So to answer your question, being quite honest, I wasn't really surviving. It was my real big focus was my little one, making sure that in her first year she was growing and I was being a responsible father. But from a work perspective, I was working for a company. I was really sheltered and protected from the sense that I had that security, if you will. And so yeah, so not much of a survivor there. Now, what I would say is for a lot of entrepreneurs in general, and a lot of people in general, they had a very difficult time just dealing with a lot of the challenges that they were facing, right? A lot of businesses got shut down and they had to reset and restart. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of moments in our lives and in the future where there's going to be big decisions that needs to be made. And it's a question of what are the next steps and what could you do differently? For a lot of entrepreneurs, they shifted into going online, and ever since then, being online, making a business online has dramatically shifted their business, and they're doing much more better in terms of the income that they're generating. And then there were some others, unfortunately, like the brick and mortar, like restaurants, where they had to shut down and essentially wait until the whole pandemic was over. So, however, if that was to repeat itself, my advice would be to those chefs, to those individuals in the restaurant business, for example, where everything did get shut down, is to also have made a shift in terms of going online because that's where everything was moving. So if you're a chef, creating recipe, teaching people how to cook from your house, for example, that could have been a product, a digital product that they could have been created. So I think there's always opportunities wherever there is problems that arises. Usually the first initial thought for people is, oh my goodness, it's over. But that's not necessarily true.
So, and I think that was the key to that time period is that I think there was all of this talk of we can't exist in this digital realm and do things
Mm.
remotely. And I think we graduated to the idea during that time period where anything is possible with technology.
That is correct. And honestly, these days it's so much easier to start a business or do anything in regards to big projects because it has never been easier than to be able to jump online and have a conversation with anyone on the other side of the planet versus before it will cost money just to pick up the phone and try to call anybody, period. It's easier to create a community. The technology just makes it so much easier for everything to be set up these days. If you want to start a business, anyone who's interested in considering the idea, you could start a business in a matter of hours and have all of the key components that you need, versus before it will take months. For example, one of the things that I do for folks, for clients, is I do research on who is their dream customer and getting very specific. So with the technology that we have today, like AI, something that would have taken me 2 to 3 months on just research and research upon research, now takes me maybe 2 weeks if I really want to get a refined sense of who is the dream customer. So yes, it couldn't be any easier.
So let's get to the idea. On paper, you're a Silicon Valley strategist turned business growth architect. But if we were
Yes.
to get to the brass tacks of what you do, and I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day, and the kid in the back of the room that's always curious is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How would you answer that child?
Uh, that's a really good question. How would I answer that question to a 12-year-old? I would say I help other businesses grow and and I help other businesses be able to provide products and services, make them reachable to other people. So for example, I will ask them, what is their favorite game console? What is their favorite dolls? So that a business has created that doll, that game console, and it required a team of people to be able to create it. So coming up with that idea and taking that idea to fruition. Now that they have that idea and they have something is tangible that people could actually touch, like the game console, then the next step would be how could we get it to the hands of kids like himself, like that 12-year-old. And how could we get the 12-year-old to know about it, get interested in it, so that they have a desire to want it? So all of those are different components in a business that I help entrepreneurs in order to grow their business so that the kid like himself is able to get his hands on it.
So, what did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream job?
When I was 12, I wanted to go into medicine, actually.
Okay.
Which is very disconnected with what I'm doing now. So the history is I wanted to go into the medical field. So I come from a family of health professionals and I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Uh, and I was already thinking like an entrepreneur, but I didn't realize that I was. So I was down the path of medical school, but along the path of medical school, I was having ventures, if you will, um, where I was providing services, creating websites for people. I was throwing parties. When I say parties, I was going at clubs and having events and attracting people, attracting traffic. Then I went into the dancing world where same thing, I was offering my service and teaching people how to dance or what have you. So I realized that a lot of how I spent my time outside of studying was really more entrepreneurial. And then once I came to that realization, that's where I just doubled down and really focused on entrepreneurship.
So, how did you get to a point where you were a Silicon Valley strategist and you decided to move into being a business growth architect? What was the fascination with technology, and what was it that ultimately made you find your calling right now in life?
So interesting you asked the question that way. So let me share you the part of the story where how I got to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So I like I mentioned, I have a family of entrepreneurs and and by seeing them and seeing other entrepreneurs and there was an overlap of questions. They had the same question. How do I get people to my business? How could I sell this? What is the price? What is the right product? What is and so on and so forth that I got really curious. And like I have mentioned, I made the realization that entrepreneurship was the path for me. Once I came into that realization, I actually got an accounting job so that I could understand numbers. Because if you don't know numbers, then it's hard to understand strategy, hard to understand business models. And I started working for the Small Business Development Center, which is a branch, is a government agency. And through there, I was working with entrepreneurs, at least entrepreneurs for each day that I was working there. And same problem, they needed a business plan. And that's how I got really interested and really and started diving deep into the whole world of business. And that's also when I realized I don't know enough. So with that, what I decided to do was go for my MBA and then started to build my skill sets in business and strategy and going after the companies that were best at it. Now, the reason why I went for tech is because I wanted to be an expert at launching products, launching services. If you look across all the different industries that is out there, there's only one industry where they have multiple launches in any given year. So while I was working at Apple, the first year that I was there, I was involved in like 6 or 7 global launches. And this was just the MacBook, the desktop, the iMacs just that line of business. So I also started working on launching for Apple TV, launching Apple Watch. So I started building that expertise of launching products, and that was really the skill set that I really wanted. And it happens by coincidence that it was in the tech industry. So it being in tech, um, the benefit of it being in tech while I was building this expertise is that the product is really sophisticated and complicated, and no two launches were ever the same. There
Wow.
was always issues that popped up that just refined my skill set, my overall understanding of launching products. So that was really my initial reason for going into tech. I did have an interest in technology overall, but it was really to become an expert in launching products.
So, From my perspective, I do technology by day.
Mhm.
I'm an IT technician for a school district.
Okay.
So I've been very close to the Apple product line. In fact, I remember I ran a few computer labs for inner city YMCA's in Kansas City, and they were financed through a company called Power Up, which Steve Case of AOL, when he was mighty at the time, financed it. And we got those all-in-one iMacs. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what am I going to do with those? Because it was before Apple relaunched, because there was that period of them being dormant. So since then and all the way up to now, I've been amazed at how many things have come out of Apple, and they are the behemoth. And I used to be a Windows guy, now I'm a Mac guy. Like I've completely converted to the Apple thing. Their customer service is wonderful, and the reason why I'm telling you this is that from the outside, especially being a tech guy, Apple has this level of seamless customer service. Their product is really good. I still have my initial MacBook that I got in '08, and it's still functional. It's a little slow, but it's still functional, which is unheard of because Windows machines in my history just die, and that's
Yeah.
just it's over with. But Macs stay around. So my question to you is this: being on the inside of the Apple world for a while, you go in with these ideas of what you think Apple is. What
Mhm.
was the most surprising thing about working inside of Apple that was different from your idea of what you knew as the Apple product line?
I wouldn't say not so much given that Apple when I joined Apple, Apple is one of the best companies when it comes to product design. Most of my surprise was more on the operations of business.
Yeah,
So I'll give you a very simple example that a lot of people could understand. So Apple, when I worked at Apple, is a company that easily sold 1 million products a day combined across the board, whether you're looking at iPhone, Mac, just everything put together. However, the company operated on Excel, on spreadsheet. And that was the biggest surprise that I had because before then I worked at Amazon, I worked at Intel, and there was a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis in creating actual tools, platforms where a lot of the work could be automated. And going back to what I shared earlier, there's no two launches that have ever been the same.
yeah.
And because they're different and they're unique in so many different ways, uh, a standard tool didn't really help the company to be able to do that. So even to the point where I left the company, they still operated with a spreadsheet along with the tools. But where I'm going with this is that despite the size of the company and the massive volume that they were driving, that alone was the biggest surprise where a spreadsheet, as simple as it is, they were still working with it. And what really held everything together was that Apple is amazing with having systems. And having a system that connects all the dots is much more critical than the fanciest technology or the fanciest tool in order to run a process. The other piece that I found really unique about Apple is that the company in terms of determining demand, looking at supplies, and just being on top of just taking a pulse on what's going on out there in all the supply chain. It wasn't a biweekly cadence, it wasn't a monthly cadence, it was a weekly cadence. Sometimes, depending on the situation, it was even a daily cadence. And Apple has been known for being one of the companies with the very top supply chain in the world compared to any companies. And at that point, like I mentioned, I worked for multiple companies prior and even multiple industries. And that's one of the things that I realized that makes them really unique is that they don't wait for an update 2 weeks or a month later, which was the case for other companies. They're like, while I was there, we're constantly monitoring and in the process of monitoring, we were able to catch stuff in time, or sometimes it wasn't in time, but however, we were able to react pretty very quickly so that the pain to the end customer wasn't as critical. And and I would say this was the third one, but it's having a big focus on the customer. All the conversation across all the different companies, it was always about how does this benefit the dream customer? And a lot of decisions were made on that customer, even if it penalized Apple from a monetary financial standpoint, which was very new and different for me because that was definitely not the case having worked at Intel and having worked at Amazon. Amazon also was very focused on the customer
Yeah.
but from a different perspective. And at the end of the day, money was really important for the company.
So let me ask you this: who, coming from a line of entrepreneurs, you've had inspiration around you from the word go, but ultimately, who has been that hero, that inspirational force for you to find your footing and to find your place in the business world today?
I was a mentor. So right before I went to my MBA, I have a mentor, and I still continue to have a relationship with him, who guided me through the process. I didn't know what I didn't know, and he made me realize what it was that I didn't know. And then there was some stuff that I did know, but I wasn't quite too sure how to go around it. So he was the one who gave me to the exposure and made me realize how much of a gap that I have. And in order to expedite my experience and get to where I want to get to, he showed me and we talked about what is the roadmap that makes the most sense based on my skill sets, my strengths, and my desires. So if I was to take any of that and share it with a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old, regardless of the age, what I would say is find mentors who already done it, have the expertise, and maybe they haven't done it. However, they have a network of individuals where they could connect you to different folks who could provide those insights to you. And the other piece is um, when thinking about business or thinking about life in general, at least the way I see it is how could I get there the fastest way? Because time is a very massive, valuable resource. If something could take me 10 years and I identify a way to get there in 5 years, then why not take that route? So I would say speed to getting to your dream goals is key. And the other one is for having mentors who could guide you along the process. It's going to be great because the people who are the most successful, at least an observation that I made, they have had mentors from the very beginning, and and people don't get to success or to the desires by doing it alone.
So, being somebody that's been in this tech world, what's your favorite piece of software and favorite piece of hardware?
So similar to you, I love the Apple products. Um, so one of the concept that I share with a lot of entrepreneurs in general, people who are selling something, service or products, is having an irresistible offer. And to your point, Apple create products that are irresistible in so many different angles. So we spoke earlier about the MacBook Pro or the all-in-one. So if we look at those devices, not only do we have a hardware that is robust, is very reliable, so it lasts long. So the hardware alone is something that people could depend upon, and that gives it value. Then they also fill it up with so many different software, right? So you have blanking out like Keynote instead of PowerPoint. You
Yeah.
have the operating system, which is the control center, everything that manages the actual computer. So there's a whole bunch of services, there's a whole bunch of software that comes along with it, which makes it very, very robust and irresistible. Unlike Windows, if I was to buy one of the Windows products, if not every year, at some point I have to buy a whole new operating system, the newer version of Windows. I have to update the new version of Microsoft, which would be Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. So where I'm going with this is that the I really love the MacBook Pro or the MacBook products because it's very, very reliable. And it is an irresistible product. It's easy. It just has everything that you need, and the value of it lasts so many different years. It's amazing. Now, in regards to software, I would say I would say software, I will stick to Apple.
Yeah.
I think I'm really biased because I worked for the company for so many years. The reason why I say Apple is because whether you're looking at the 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 system for an Apple Watch or whether or the system for an iPhone or the MacBook, the experience that you have is very seamless, right? Turning on a MacBook versus turning on a Windows, your MacBook is already on in a matter of seconds, especially if it's a brand new one, which is very different from for a PC. PC might last minutes. Everything just works very seamless. Everything is just very fluid. It makes the experience so much easier. When you're trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, it just automatically does it. So there's a lot of thought that has been put behind each of the different software for a lot of the software behind Apple, uh, to create that experience of making it easy, very making it very simple, and most importantly for Apple, surprising and delighting their customer.
So, how have you found the balance throughout the years, and especially now as a professional, between taking care of yourself, your family, and doing the best job you can? What is that motivation every day for you?
The motivation for me is family.
Yeah.
For me, that's first and foremost. And the reason why I'm doing a lot of this is for family. So the way I think about it is when our day comes where we're moving on, outside of this physical world, what we're taking with us is our experiences. And the best, highest quality of experience is going to be with those that we truly love. And most of the time, oftentimes, they happen to be with family. So, how do I balance the two? Is a matter, I would say, having a lot of really great communication is really what it comes down to. And also a commitment to myself in terms of what is really important for me. So I have clarity in terms of what are my values, and family is definitely up there. And then I asked myself this question a while back. What does that mean in terms of how much time I devote to my daughter, for example? So once I was able to define that, it's like there's nothing comes in the way. There are minor exceptions, but very rare and very minor. So when I'm with my daughter on the weekends, for example, my entire time is with my daughter. The only time that I actually do work is when she's already asleep
Yeah.
and I happen to have the extra energy and I'm in the mood to doing something very entrepreneurial. So other than that, for example, I weekdays I'll go to bed at midnight, well, whatever it takes in order to move forward with the business, in order to help other entrepreneurs achieve their goals. So that's how I balance it. I think I first come up with what are my values, what is critical, especially for family, which is up there. And for me, as long as I'm hitting those those guidelines or those boundaries, then I'm pretty satisfied.
So, of everything that you've accomplished up to this point in your life, and more importantly, evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
I would say I'm most proud of myself. Um, so the quick background on me is I came to this country when I was 5 years old, and 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 I imagine a 5 year old being surrounded by strangers in an airport and a woman bending down on her knees to give him a hug, and she's saying, "I'm your mother." And this is the first time he had this encounter.
Wow.
So that was me. And not only was I meeting my mother for the first time, I was also meeting a new man and my sister. So it was an overall new experience to me. And so I was coming from the Dominican Republic. I thought my mother was my aunt. My mother had never abandoned me. She was just doing what she could from her perspective to be able to find me a home. And there was a lot of just growing up. There was a lot of big contrast versus what I saw in the Dominican Republic, whether it's architecture, whether it's the lifestyle, being being able to like being able to just go outside, right? Being in a building. So I lived in a building, was very different. We had all types of government affordability programs, whether it's Section 8, welfare, food stamp. So I mention all that because for me, poverty was real, and not so much in the Dominican Republic because my mother was providing a lot of the funds and I didn't see that. And that created a contrast. That's where I started realizing what is poverty versus what is not. It made me realize that if I wanted to get out of that, I really had to be focused and do my absolute best in terms of school because I was told if I wanted to lead that type of lifestyle, I had to do such things. But it also gave me resilience because I'll give you an example. Is I worked at McDonald's 120 blocks from where I lived because it was the job that I was able to find at the time, and I wasn't using the money to go party and buy fancy clothes. I was using the money to be able to support or help support my siblings because there were nights where we didn't eat food. There were times I didn't have the subway fare and I walked 120 blocks to get to work. So where I'm going with that is um, this I had so many challenges and I've been fortunate enough to find mentors along the way. that gave me the extra boost, that gave me the extra clarity. And despite a lot of those different struggles and a lot of easier way to escape poverty, if you will, I was very focused. I was able to turn that around, went to BC, went to my MBA, and worked for all these, Fortune 50 companies. And so there was a lot in terms of changing my mindset from a poverty thinking person to someone who's, is not any different than anyone else who is successful, to then making that next step to being an entrepreneur. And even making that jump to an entrepreneur, there's a lot of self-development that still continues on. And that's, and if you, at least for me, and when I speak with other entrepreneurs, many of them didn't realize there were still skeletons in the closet until they took upon that entrepreneurial journey. So to answer your question, who am I modeling? What impressed me? What kept me going? I would say the older version of myself who's already extremely successful. So this would be the 50-year-old Engels, the 60-year-old Engels, and I'm already thinking how he's successful, what he has accomplished, and I'm going and I wouldn't say chasing after that, but I'm basically taking the path that will get me there the fastest.
What a wonderful portal into your timeline. That's such a great answer. So, if anyone has any questions, they want to hire you, they want to reach out, any of the good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
The best place to visit me would be the website generatingleadsonline.com. This is where I will help entrepreneurs grow their business. Now, if you are not an entrepreneur and you want to have conversations about life, philosophy, or what have you, you could definitely find me in social media, Instagram, Facebook, and my name is Engels J Valenzuela, Engels Engels J Valenzuela, Valenzuela.
And I will put all of this in the show notes. Engels, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. It's inspirational and wonderful. I appreciate you opening up today.
Thank you. I appreciate you connecting and making this happen. And I hope your audience have taken a bunch of valuable insights from this.
I have no doubt. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Best.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.